Wonderful Sunday evening, December 3rd. I hope you had a great morning and afternoon. Now it's late afternoon. And let's squeeze in it's not after work, after church story and time to prepare for the week. Let's see, where did we stop? I think Ghana through time. Yeah, Ghana through time. We know that Ghana has been around for thousands of years. And wait a minute. We talked about the gold. Oh yeah, we're here. Oh, we're here. Somewhere, very sobering. The Europeans arrive because we know that Ghana was around for thousands of years and they were a great source of gold, right? Gold was just in the elements of the earth. It says 6,000 years ago. I'm not sure about that, but the people made their homes in the lush forests and the plant life, and it talks about the kingdom of Ghana and the region and the Asante people. Well, like I said, let's go here where it's a very sad place. It's a very life-changing place where you see the door of no return. There are several dungeons. They say slave castles, they were dungeons. But let's dive into this. One is Elmina. Okay, the Portuguese were the first Europeans to arrive on the African coast. In 1471, the first Portuguese arrived on shores that are now part of Ghana. The Portuguese king rewarded the seafarers for each length of coast they acquired. They were given the exclusive right to trade in that land. Wherever they landed, the Portuguese built sturdy forts and castles, many of which still stand today. The first castle, built in 1482, was named St. George of the Mine Castle and is now known as Elmina Castle. Yes. The name Elmina is taken from Portuguese words that mean the mine. Elmina, you see it? And this is a picture of the Portuguese who built the castle in 1482. They transported oil. They transported all the materials used to build a fort to Ghana aboard 10 ships. The Portuguese lived in the forts and castles and established trade agreements with the Africans. Later, the Portuguese used the forts as defenses against other Europeans who wanted to take over the same territory. You would see in the outside of the castle, you would see these large tanks and weaponry that still is there today and is facing the ocean. The Portuguese came to the region to trade for gold. When they arrived along Ghana's coast, they named it the Gold Coast. They saw gold glittering in the streams. The mines of the Gold Coast produced as much as 30,000 ounces, that's 850,000 grams a year for the Portuguese king. Gradually, trade in enslaved people replaced trade in gold. For nearly a century, the Portuguese had no competition along the Gold Coast. They made deals with the local chiefs who provided them with enslaved people. Sometimes the Portuguese captured slaves on their own. And this is, liking the slave auction room of Elmina Castle. In some years, 30,000 enslaved people passed through Elmina before being transported to the Americas. My goodness. And you have to read about this because this is part of the history of Ghana. The institution of slavery began in ancient times and developed in societies around the world. In Africa, it was established as early as the 10th century. Africans who had been captured in the region of present-day Sudan in Northeast Africa were taken across the Sahara and sold. Most were women who were used mainly as servants and farm workers. Other Africans were shipped and just used terribly. They were shipped north to the Mediterranean, where they were sold as servants or laborers to Spain and other European countries. Slavery existed in the Gold Coast before the first Europeans arrived there in 1471. People captured during wars in the Gold Coast became unpaid laborers for the victors, but they were always regarded as human beings. It was European traders who first saw slaves as trade goods rather than as people. They shipped enslaved Africans across the Atlantic Ocean in chains packed tightly together. Many enslaved people died during the crossing, of course, because they were on top of one another and there was a lot of sickness. There weren't plumbing facilities. So yes, a lot of waste, fecal matter. And you will see in the basement of the dungeons hardened after centuries. So you're standing on a lot of matter. Yeah. And you still smell the sadness, the sacrifice. It was horrible. If you have a chance, visit these, they call it castles, no, dungeons. Some Ghanaians traded Africans to Europeans for guns and cloth. With guns, Ghanaians could defend themselves against attacks from other groups. The chiefs grew more powerful and captured more people to be sold as slaves. No one knows for sure how many people were sold and shipped out of Africa. It is estimated that 10 million Africans were sold into slavery. Experts believe that at least 500,000 people were sold and shipped away from the Gold Coast alone. The picture above is a recreation from a film about the slave trade. That's not Roots. I'm not sure which one this is. Oh, that's hard. Let's see. The trade was challenged by the Dutch, who were also great sailors. In 1637, Elmina Castle fell into the Dutch, and by 1642, the Portuguese had lost their grip on the Gold Coast. Throughout the rest of the 1600s and 1700s, a variety of Europeans made landfall along the coast and made trade deals with the Africans. By 1872, the British had fought off all other contenders, becoming a major power on the Gold Coast. So you have the Portuguese, the Dutch, now the British. And I think we're going to stop here because we can pick up with Maya Angelou. She took residence way back, I want to say in the 60s. So yeah, we'll pick up with that. But like I said, it's a very sad past, but it's realistic. It's what actually happened. That's why we have to be committed to educating our young so that we can take advantage of the opportunities that we have. It reminds me of a scripture, Isaiah 58:12, that we're called to build up the old waste places. We're called to lead forth the present generation and the next generation. We're to be called the repairer of the breach and the restorer of paths to dwell on. So the way to do that is to prepare ourselves, get knowledge. Knowledge is power, and pass on what has taken place, the knowledge, so that our young people will see that we don't have time to waste. All right. Well, I hope you have a great evening reflecting on the sacrifices and the pain of our ancestors, and know we all have work to do. Have a good evening.